This is Rengar. He is a cat with a knife. For most bot lane players, he is the reason to uninstall League of Legends.
A summoner has disconnected.
For Riot Games, he is a 14-year-long mistake that they have tried and failed to fix. So today we're going to examine how Rengar became one of the best and most popular champions in solo queue, even at the highest of ranks. I want to know why this champion has been so fundamentally impossible to balance, and how despite Riot's efforts, this champion is still taking over League of Legends. Because there are a lot of assassins in the game that will one-shot you obviously, but there are also ways where it feels like there's counterplay like Zed's ult window, Echo's time-based abilities, Pyke's warning when he's close, and much more. The Rengar only needs to click once and it's lights out, literally. On an unassuming autumn day in 2012, designer Trevor Classic Romlensky, known for working on Nami, old Aatrox and the Twitch update, unleashed his creation Rengar into the world.
Tonight we hunt!
Most players didn't really grasp what they were dealing with. His kit looked straightforward enough. You build ferocity through abilities and spend it on empowered versions of them. There's an ultimate that provides stealth and movement speed, but what took time to surface was how these mechanics combined. Rengar could stack ferocity, trigger an empowered ability during stealth, then leap with the enhanced effect preloaded. This interaction wasn't documented anywhere special. It just existed as a consequence of his ability timing. Because Q reset his auto attack and refunded ferocity, that single leap often contained multiple Q activations chained together so quickly they registered as a single instant.
Q, 1, 2, jump on it, cast every single spell, and hit Q again. There you go, that's a triple Q.
It didn't even matter that much because players were building him like most other bruisers. Trinity Force, tank items, ways to survive teamfights. Eventually, players started testing pure damage builds. Instead of trying to survive teamfights, what if you eliminated someone fast enough that survival became basically irrelevant? Rengar's empowered Q scaled heavily with attack damage. Stack enough AD items, add some critical strike multipliers on top, and the numbers became absurd. A player named Ryan Choi climbed solo queue exclusively using maximum damage builds, calling it Insta-Gip Rengar, named after old shooter games where everything died in one single hit.
Pentakill.
An AD carry could be farming a side lane, and then in less than 2 seconds, they'd be dead. No meaningful warning period or opportunity to react. This is what created Rengar's first major ban wave in late 2012. Not because his win rate was exceptional, in fact it hovered below 50% since the build required snowballing early, but because the experience of playing against it felt completely non-interactive. Another discovery came shortly after because the AD assassination build wasn't the only way to delete people. What made Rengar truly crazy during this era was that his W, Battle Roar, had AP scaling. Very good AP scaling. His empowered W dealt magic damage in an area and could be combined with items like Deathfire Grasp for massive burst. So AP Rengar became a legitimate strategy. Build Deathfire Grasp, stack ability power, leap from stealth, activate DFG on your target, then hit W and empower W for an instant AoE nuke. The beautiful part was that you didn't even need to auto attack. I decided to try this in one of my games because, let's be honest, running into an enemy team, screaming twice and getting a pentakill sounds pretty hilarious on paper.
What? I died mid-jump? Oh my god. Dude, I can't. Nah, what a play. AP Rengar, there it is. It's not very good right now.
But yeah, it doesn't work so well in League today because Riot had to understandably get rid of the wizard cat era. But the problem was that back then, this meant Rengar had 2 completely separate one-shot builds that required different itemization to counter. You can stack armor against AD Rengar, but the AP build ignored it entirely. You can build magic resist for AP Rengar, but the AD build obviously didn't care. You can't itemize against both at the same time, which meant Rengar players could adjust their build path based on what the enemy team was buying. Riot nerfed his damage in December 2012. The usual lower base stats, reduced ratio, longer ultimate cast time, but his ban rate barely shifted. Builds adjusted slightly with more movement speed and marginally safer itemization. But again, the core pattern stayed intact. The fact that Rengar had sustained 2 separate burst patterns for years demonstrated just how overloaded his damage profile was. But then, competitive play discovered an entirely separate problem. In organized games, things work a little differently because teams have proper vision coverage. They communicate constantly, they move together.
Members, Pawn did the most damage last game, he's about to do it again.
Yep.
Oh!
Spirit.
Your jungle is not your jungle, says Samsung White. They're gonna try to take it back here. They said you gotta pay rent if you're gonna stay. Idol of Duran goes down. They are not able to get too much off of that, but they do get a kill over to Dade. Still the fight continues. Pawn comes in with the jump. That just looks like he is gonna chew everything up. One more hit, the double kill for Pawn as he gets a kill on Dade and Acorn.
Everything that made Rengar oppressive in solo queue could be managed through coordination. But his ultimate had a feature that solo queue mostly ignored, which is revealing nearby enemies when activated. And in professional matches, information is critical. Teams could trigger his ultimate just to check barons, scout positioning, or gather intel before major objectives. Beyond that, his base kit had utility that didn't require damage items. His E could root a priority target. His W provided resistance and healing. None of this utility and free stats demanded building any offense. So, competitive players simply didn't. Full tank with Sunfire, Spirit Visage, Warmox, Randuin's, sometimes 0 offensive items across the entire build. This version wasn't hunting the squishy AD carries. The strategy centered on scouting, engage potential, and frontline presence. And during certain periods in early professional play, tank Rengar found success in specific regional metas, though his overall competitive presence remained inconsistent. But that disconnect between how the best in the world played him and how, I play him is exactly what led to the next few years of balance disasters. In May 2013, Riot reworked his ultimate mechanics by adding a delay before stealth activated. By changing how Rengar's empowered abilities could be prepared during stealth, they could perhaps give his victims a longer reaction window before being one-shot anyway. The combo restrictions also reduced engaged effectiveness, so his presence in professional matches declined. But while Rengar slightly changed build to compensate for the delay, the fundamental frustration of being one-shot from stealth remained. His solo queue ban rate stayed elevated for years, but his competitive presence stayed minimal. In a way, Riot had separated the two audiences by making him weak in one context and frustrating in the other. Nearly every patch cycle brought some attempt at finding middle ground. None achieved lasting stability. By late 2016, they didn't really move toward a full rework for Rengar, but slightly changed the functionality of his abilities. So the rework launched in patch 6.22, and the most controversial change was to Rengar's signature ability. This new Q made Rengar dash forward slightly and swipe in a small cone. Empowered Q gave you multiple swipes in rapid succession instead of a single enhanced auto attack. On paper, this added skill expression. You could miss it, you had to aim it. There was counterplay through positioning.
And this preseason's giving him more tools for the hunt while giving his opponents more space to react. It's more space to react.
The dash was short and awkward. The cone was narrow enough that you could whiff at a point-blank range if your target moved unpredictably. The cast time made the combos feel sluggish compared to the instant satisfaction of old Q. Rengar players hated it immediately. You'd leap on someone, activate empowered Q, and then stand there swiping at the air while your target flashed away or your team killed them before you could finish the animation. It removed player agency at the worst possible moments.
The only thing I don't like about it is just the speed of it. The speed of it is a little annoying. It's a little slow.
And despite all the changes, core issues remained. He still built damage, still had stealth, still could gap close and burst targets. For over a year, dedicated Rengar players advocated for reversing the changes. The Q change became a rallying point with nearly every revert discussion centered on bringing back the auto attack reset. In patch 8.4, Almost 2 years later, Riot reverted major elements, brought back previous Q functionality, restored old ferocity mechanics, and returned previous ultimate behavior. They kept only the warning indicators from the rework as a compromise. The revert was significant because Riot rarely admits a rework failed badly enough to warrant full reversal. Within months, the old patterns re-emerged. Elevated solo queue ban rates, minimal competitive presence, one-shot compilation videos. What many players overlook is how League's broader systems were shifting during this period. The game was trending towards faster, burstier combat. None of these changes targeted Rengar specifically, but collectively they created conditions where his weaknesses mattered less and his strength landed harder. Less vision meant less advanced warning. Squishier builds meant more consistent eliminations. Faster game pacing meant less time for opponents to scale defensively. Then Season 11 introduced the item system overhaul. New mythic items appeared that seemed almost designed for this pattern, like Duskblade providing invisibility on eliminations. Prowler's Claw offered a targeted dash with damage amplification. Eclipse delivered burst with shielding. Every assassin mythic gave Rengar additional tools for either executing targets or escaping afterwards. His ban rate spiked again, his elimination combos became more viable, and Riot nerfed him again. Earlier years included explanations about reducing frustration or adding counterplay mechanics, but in 2019, notes just mentioned performance metrics. The language moved from problem solving to maintenance. It seemed that Riot had concluded that certain champions simply occupy specific patterns, that Rengar's tendency towards feast or famine gameplay, solo queue frustration, and competitive absence was acceptable within certain boundaries. But before we continue, we need to talk about something that's haunted Rengar since day one: bugs. And I'm not talking about Kha'Zix and their in-game quest. I'm talking about game-breaking, tournament-pausing, how is this still in the game kind of bugs. The most infamous was the infinite Q bug. When fighting champions like Yasuo, Rengar was somehow able to Q auto-attack indefinitely because of some issue with his passive. That wasn't the only alarming problem. When trying to dash over Azir's wall, he would be unable to move for the rest of the game. It was like no matter which champion he was fighting, something would break. As a matter of fact, Rengar was so problematic that he was disabled multiple times in professional play because teams couldn't trust he'd work as intended. Then there was the swimming Q bug during the 2017 rework, which we'll come back to at a later point too. Here, Rengar's attack animations would desync entirely, making him look like he's doing the breaststroke while trying to assassinate someone. Truly the apex predator experience. But here's what makes Rengar's bug history so absurd. Even today, in Season 16, he still has a long list of bugs. His leap can randomly cancel mid-air, his ferocity stacks don't register properly, or his empowered abilities sometimes just don't empower. Riot tried fixing Rengar so many times, but somehow, after 14 years, basic functionality issues are still here.
Fixes and is in a stronger state overall. Yeah, I mean, this champ, when you account for mastery, is one of the best junglers in the game. He is just overpowered.
It's almost poetic. A champion so broken that even when he's working as intended, he's still broken. After years attempting to fix him, the conclusion apparently became, maybe this champion is acceptable being unfixable. That's where we are in Season 16. Rengar still maintains elevated ban rates in ranked and rarely appears in professional matches. Receives minor buffs when metrics drop too low, minor nerfs when ban rates climb too high. Still generates highlight compilations and frustration posts. This is what people miss when asking why Riot hasn't fixed him. The answer isn't lack of knowledge. Fixing him would require converting him into a fundamentally different champion. And at some point, Riot decided that cost wasn't worth paying. Every rework discussion about Rengar now starts assuming his stealth and leap must remain, that his elimination potential defines his identity, that perhaps frustration for opponents is acceptable if balanced by satisfaction for pilots. Maybe that's correct. Maybe after all these years of balanced attempts, the sunk cost is too high to admit certain champion fantasies fundamentally don't work. Maybe continuing periodic number adjustments is easier than reimagining what Rengar should be. Either way, the outcome stays consistent. Rengar remains problematic, and so the cycle continues. That's the real story of how Rengar broke League of Legends.